Sounds good. Let's go ahead and get started with some introductions. My name is Jim Livingston, SVP of Sales for ServingIntel.
And I am Lance Bell. In my role today, I'm CIO for ServingIntel. I'm also co-founder and CEO. The agenda today, this is the second part of the webinar we did 2 weeks ago. And so today we're going to be talking about the confluence of artificial intelligence and business intelligence. And then we're going to get into something that most people don't appreciate or like, which is the governance. How do you make all of this work for our partners so that they get better outcomes?
And Lance, I think we'd set it up best if I just start kind of rifling off some questions and have you answer it for the folks out there. Let's start with the first one. So what are some of the common pitfalls to avoid during the assessment phase of AI integration?
All right, so what we're talking about for most of our partners, these are large corporations doing anywhere from $10 million up to our largest partner is in the $4 billion revenue range. Is where is your data siloed? And that just a few years ago used to be a real problem, the inability to bring data together. And over the last few years, a niche industry has popped up, ETL. And ETL is an acronym that stands for E is extract, T is transform, and then L is load. In fact, in the news this week, there was a lot of news this week regarding AI and BI. Microsoft had their build event, their annual event for developers. And in that event, they announced that they're launching their own ETL solution called Fabric. And so what this is, today, most corporations suffer different solutions, having different data hierarchy or structures that can't come together and be analyzed or reported against for the entire organization. And so ETL now has opened that up. And our job as a technology provider is to assist corporations to bring this together. And so we're able to work with, depending on the vendor, we're able to work with different silos of data to bring them in and in either near real time or say once a day process, a batch process, bring that data in and then provide intelligence that we'll talk about today, the A and the B of this, bring that together in order to provide intelligent information to executives and leaders so that they're able to make timely business decisions that better serve their partners. So in this process, the first thing is assessment. Where are you at today? And so anybody leading the IT for a corporation should have an idea of their tech stack. All of this should be documented. What are the processes and what are the opportunities? Specifically, we're going to start with AI. And then understanding the readiness of that data. What type, is it unstructured or is it non-structured? What type of system is storing that data? And then how are we going to be able to do the ETL, pull it out? And then here's the interesting thing, and then train it from the artificial intelligence piece in order to get better outcomes. So this is a process. And this is a process that our team went through when we created our own AI platform called Ruby. Is that we had to assess, we had to go through a process of planning. We had to look at what different platforms were out there from a software standpoint, what hardware is going to be needed in order to support that software, and then plugins. That's the big hot thing in AI right now, plugins. You're not wanting to buy, in terms of artificial intelligence, a single solution. You're actually wanting a portal that has multiple plugin opportunities to multiple solutions. For example, for us today, we have a plugin for OpenAI that's direct to them, and we have a separate plugin to Microsoft's AI platform. We're using Microsoft speech to text and text to speech, which will be a solution, an embedded solution. You can think of them as the plugins number 3 and 4. And then with that, we have our own NLU, natural learning platform, the training platform. And so we have the NLU that's working all of the data specific to our partners, our customers. And then when somebody asks a question that has absolutely nothing to do, what red wine goes best with meatloaf? that question, if there is such an answer to that question, would come from either OpenAI or Microsoft's platform, just depending on how we do the routing. And so the planning piece of this is super important. What are your goals? There's more things that you can put on the goal sheet and attempt to accomplish than there are days in this year. And so what's the highest priority for you? And then the second piece of this is selecting those technologies. We have recommendations for our partners. We can provide some of the research that we've done direct to people who want to interface with this. But otherwise, you got to get out there and start experimenting and talking to other people and finding out what opportunities out there exist regarding NLU, the computer vision, visual AI, and other subsets.
Wow, that's great information, Lance. Can you elaborate a little bit more on the pilot phase of the implementation step?
Yeah, in software, there's minimum viable product. That acronym has been abused quite a bit the last few years, but MVP is very applicable to this. You got to take this in baby chunks. So, for example, for us, what did we want to achieve in the Ruby AI platform? We wanted to have conversations. Well, actually, twofold. One, through our progressive web application, we wanted to have conversations. So we did the speech to text, we did the text to speech. We set this thing up with some personalization. It stores your first name. It'll greet you by morning or afternoon. And in the routing of the traffic was our MVP. And then on the cloud side, for our executives and leaders, we actually embedded the OpenAI layout. So if anybody's using Chat GPT, we embedded that layout into our enterprise solution so that a manager could go type in, how many breakfasts do we serve today? How many meals did we serve last week? Did Mary Smith have breakfast today? And so the data learning piece of this for the machine learning is where we're at right now, going from static or canned answers to actually data enriched answers. So for our partners, that's the first thing you have to define. From an implementation standpoint, what's most important? What's going to give you the best ROI out of the chute? And then after that, this is when you start working with your residents, your customers. How is the conversational piece working? All of these conversations are stored in a database, a non-structured database, and they're viewable. In the world of AI, there are happy stories and there are unhappy stories. There's some terminology. It's kind of interesting in the realm of AI. But a happy story is a conversation where from start to finish, the person engaging the AI gets the answers they want. What's for breakfast? What's for breakfast tomorrow? Can I place an order for breakfast tomorrow? Place that order, get confirmation. That's a happy story. Flip side is, what's for lunch tomorrow? Meatloaf. Why does this community keep serving meatloaf? I can't believe they're still serving meatloaf. If it concludes with nothing being delivered, that would be an unhappy story. And we're setting up triggers so that we can alert the executive directors, the dining room staff on these unhappy stories so that they're able to get the feedback from their residents through the systems. So implementation starts with deployment. There is local. We started off with our first Ruby AI deployment being local. We are set up to go cloud with our Microsoft partners. And so we're going to piecemeal this. As we define a solution, we're going to deploy it to the cloud so we get it out of our labs and get it up in Azure where it should be. And then from there, that's scaling. So for us, local, cloud, and then cloud scaling. And it's going to take a little bit. There's containers is very hot right now. Kubernetes is one of the vendors that do the container management. It's the ability to take a solution and take it across multiple servers. There are managed instances that are being utilized with data, with AI. And this is how you can go, you take your solution, and as it scales across multiple communities, thousands of residents, you're going to want this thing to grow in a very efficient manner. And the scaling process, the infrastructure, IT infrastructure needs at the end of the day to be robust enough in order to meet the needs.
So why is it important to pilot this AI solution before you go ahead and scale?
I think a lot of it has to do with resource allocation. One of the things, Jim, I learned as I got into this, which is very interesting, like cyber currencies, like Bitcoin, um, blockchain technologies, they rely on the graphical processing unit and not the central processing unit. And so video cards, big honking video cards, you think of the manufacturer, NVIDIA, these are the ones, this is where all of that processing takes place. In the graphics version, even though we're talking about text, I think of a couple of different terms that are coming, all the processing's in the GPU. And so the ability to scale is a real important aspect of that. You need to be able to test your effectiveness, the suitability, especially in a smaller controlled environment. And this is going to help in identifying potential issues or challenges as it relates and allows for adjustments and refinements before rolling out the solution at a much larger scale. It also reduces the risk of failure and potential negative impacts for the companies. And so key takeaways, we have 3 sections today. We're kind of wrapping up the first section right now. So strategic integration. This is not one size fits all. There are so many plugins coming out today. OpenAI, it was just a week and a half ago released. It was over 50 different plugins. Expedia for travel, Zapier for doing business, machine controlling process flow and business rules. There's a lot going on right now, and you got to hone it in to what strategic approach is best tailored for your individual needs and goals. And then you got the pilot before the scale. Yeah, create that small lab, identify that MVP, and get it to where you really want it to be in order before it takes off and you start scaling out.
Hey, Lance, how can we ensure that our IT infrastructure is robust enough to support this AI integration?
Well, we kind of talked about earlier. It's multiple steps, right? It's including an assessment of your current capabilities. Do you have people who have bandwidth on the current team? Do you want to outsource to a company like us and have us either consult and assist you with this process, or take it all over and actually set the entire process up for you? Through the process, you have to identify those weaknesses, those gaps, the opportunity for upgrades, improvements, and you have to be able to implement them as needed. It's also critical. It's very important to have a capable IT team to manage and maintain after deployment. You got to be able to watch the infrastructure. It's one of the reasons why today we really love Azure and the Azure platform. They manage the infrastructure, the breakdowns, everything that takes place on a hardware side. And, finally, whether it's us or somebody else, it's helpful to have an IT consultant come along for the ride and make sure everything gets set up the way that it should be set up. So infrastructure, critical for robust. The outcome-oriented approach, you need to focus on the outcomes that you and your organization care about. Of course, this should have leadership buy-in. And then, what are your larger goals? Where do you see this thing going? Obvious ones like we want to improve customer service. We want to optimize supply chains. Yeah, decision making. This is where we kind of get over to the business intelligence, the BI side of this. This is what's new, Jim, and it's kind of the timing of this webinar right now is it's just so crazy how fast things are coming out. There's an alignment that just started, which is business intelligence and artificial intelligence. And in fact, the team that we created, with the programming team internal for us, we actually called AI BI before this merging actually took place. We had a group of software engineers that worked for our company that were focused on the ERP and the CRM side of Microsoft Dynamics. So that's the infrastructure for running an entire corporation. And Power BI, this is Microsoft's tool for dashboards for creating business intelligence. And then in comes crashing Microsoft's AI. And now there are 2 separate parts of Microsoft's solution stack, but these 2 are coming together very quickly. And between them is a database. And so if you're using Dynamics, ERP, and CRM, you already have the database built. It's already ready to go. If you don't, if you're using other providers for property management, electronic health records, that information has to come in to a data warehouse. The more, the better. And through there, you can begin the machine learning and then the dashboards, the business intelligence. So that's the approach that you're looking at. The business objectives and goals are huge on this. And then with this, then we get into identifying the alignment, the investing, and then overcoming. The overcoming, I think, Jim, I think it's actually more focused right now on blazing the trail. There haven't been a lot of implementation challenges. And I think that's because of solutions like Chat GPT. We have a lot of things at our fingertips, and it's very easy to get information. So sliding into section number 2, we've got the role of these two things coming together for the purposes of decision making, predictive analytics, and customer experience.
So the first question in this segment is, how does AI and BI collaboration enhance the decision making in a practical setting?
Yeah, they work together. I mean, that's the most important thing. It's, artificial intelligence. If you think about it like this, artificial intelligence today, because we're not at the generative part, it's often referred to as level 5 of AI. We're at 4 right now if you're on a paid version of OpenAI, for example. So it's not generative, which means I see a problem. I'm being AI. I'm your AI solution. I see the problem. I know the preferred solution, and I begin to implement the preferred solution without anybody else being involved. We're not there today, but we're getting there pretty quickly. Today, I have a ton of wonderful learned information, and you, the operator, need to ask me some questions. So this is where, Jim, if you take, for example, sales transactions, one of the attendance, also referred to as census. When you care about individual residents in a community, I, as a dining room manager, let's say, for example, one of our residents leaves her cell phone at the table. I can look who was sitting at table 18 today for breakfast, and it'll bring up a list of residents. Who was sitting at table 18 in seat number 2? Well, if you're using our point of sale solution, we can tell you who was sitting at seat 2 at table 18 today for breakfast. So now I've locked in on Mary Jones was the person. Then I can ask AI, what apartment is Mary Joan in? Now, I can go to Census in the CRM of the point of sale, and I can do a name search, and I can look and I can find all that information in a traditional software infrastructure through the user interface. I can just simply ask the question, what apartment is Mary Jones in? 18. Table 18, apartment 18. How synergistic. But now I can run or have one of my staff members run the cell phone back to Miss Jones, and all of that happened on a cell phone, and it happened in the middle of the dining room, and it happened through the AI system. And so that's that piece of it today. The BI piece is at a very specific place, in a very similar place. It's at the spot where it's dashboards, but they're getting more intuitive. The data presentation is getting richer. 3D graphs, there's all types of different graphs that are being provided to help show trend analysis, but detailed data insights, predictive modeling. What do we have historical, and what can we see going forward? The decision support. These are the things that are happening today. And that's one of the cool things about AI that a lot of people aren't really using it for, the predictive analytics piece of this. Jim, there's a company in France. It's a French name. It didn't stick with me, so I apologize to all the French people out there. But they have 300 engineers. And this is, if I had to go to work for another company, I might actually move to France. The goal of these 300 engineers is to simply dream. Companies, large corporations come to this group and they say, what will our company look like 1 year from now, 3 years from now, 5 years from now? And this group of engineers will analyze the company. Where do they look today? And then they'll dream. They'll dream about new products, new solutions, new markets, new niches. All of this is a core tenet of AI today. And you can take that dreaming strategy level and you can bring it all the way down to the tactical level. You can ask questions of AI. I want to get into the dining rooms now. You can ask questions of AI. What's been our most popular entree for the last 30 days or last 90 days? Is there what are the top 3 popular entrees? Is there a correlation? Were they all chicken dishes? Were they all beef dishes? And then you can ask the question, AI, what do you think would be the most popular dish for the next month? Give me some recipes on that. How about nutritional information? What's the serving size? And all of this information just pops. Now, this is assuming we have a lot of communities that are doing farm to table, that, the local chef is driving the culinary decisions. AI supports that local chef and everything they're doing from that perspective. So getting, the algorithms are in place today where they can vast amounts of transactional information, and they're able to see patterns, predictions, and bring all this together for the operators. BI is the piece that actually does the visualization of that.
Yeah, I would just like to know when you're leaving for France, because I know that's a job you would love. There's no doubt about it. All right, on to our next question. Can you provide an example of how AI and BI improve customer experience?
Yeah, absolutely. We've got 2 examples here. And there's a lot of information on the screen. We actually parted it down quite a bit. And so just 2 examples out of the box. We want to move away from transactions a little bit. So a community that integrated the AI, and the goal was personalized care. This is an important thing. And so the AI system learns individual preferences and is able then to correlate meals. And this would be for pre-ordering. Now, we, of course, have an e-commerce solution. We have the ability to have the system order meals either for delivery to the room or for pickup if the resident wants to get out of the room and come down. And based on that transactional data, they have the opportunity to proactively assist the caregivers to get them that personalized stuff. You kind of think of this as my favorite meals. We have a lot of communities that also today are serving wine, wonderful wine lists. They're even serving high-end liquor. And so it's able to learn the preferences across breakfast, lunch, and dinner, across food, beer, wine, liquor, staff. Everybody falls in love with those individual servers or bartenders. And all this information gets collected in a profile. And again, it can be used by the team and either to reward staff members who are doing a great job of taking care of the residents, or, conversely, just making sure those residents get what they're looking for. And so all of this comes in this scenario it's all about responsible AI. And so when we get into governance, we're going to talk a little bit more about that. But it's ensuring that the system follows strict data privacy rules and doesn't infringe on personal space and the privacy of residents. This is a weird spot. Jim, we talk about things with our AI BI team. What if? Now, I want to be sensitive, but I also want to be a little edgy as well. What if, I got an idea. What if you have a resident, maybe they were a former tech executive, and they want to start writing malware? This would be a good example. So they're sitting in their apartment, they're bored, they want to start writing malware. Maybe they want to hack the NSA or the FBI. These types of conversations are had. They're had today with OpenAI, but to know that it's Jim Thompson in apartment 123 who's asking how to crack the NSA, those types of conversations, in our opinion, should be brought forth to management so they can have a conversation with Jim and see if maybe he needs to engage in some chess or some other thing to take his mind off of hacking the FBI. So there are a lot of different scenarios. Snapchat. Let's flip from older Americans to younger Americans. Snapchat recently released an AI chatbot for their users. It's rolling out now across their platform. I'm not on Snapchat, but we have a daughter who is, and engages it and actually asks it all types of questions as if it were a friend on how to do things in life, interviewing for a job, and just all kinds of stuff. And that is the cool part of AI. It really releases the creativity of the end user. So there's a lot of different use cases, and it's a very gray line right now for the privacy concern. Should your local team get involved if somebody's asking questions they might not should ask, or Should they not be involved? Should there be high privacy? And so, Jim, what I kind of see this, I see this as a sliding scale from no privacy to complete privacy, and there's pros and cons on both sides. So our team's initial approach is there's no privacy. And the reason why we've got the slider at no privacy is because we have to analyze the conversations in order to train the system. And so our team sees the conversations that our customers are using today. We see it through a user interface. And our goal is flagging the unhappy questions, getting the right answers to the questions, and refining the system. That's the training piece of this. And so the best data for training is real data. That's it. And if you don't have recorded conversations between customers and staff, I mean, realistically, who does?
Yeah.
Then you have to do it in real time as the system gets deployed. So, Jim, I see it as a sliding scale where most of our partners will go from no privacy. And then as the system gets experienced or whatever technology they deploy, they'll start to etch it up. And at some point, the system can go freeform.
All right. So can you provide a little more detail on how integrated AI BI approach looks like in real practice?
Yeah. I think the best example is really some fall detection and prevention. So this is another example. This is outside of us. A facility uses an AI-powered motion sensors. So that's what's really cool about this. And the term IoT, the Internet of Things, really is the category where you would place wearables. And so wearables, especially those with gyroscopes, they can, like most watches have a gyroscope, they can detect a resident falling over. The level of sensor sophistication is not nearly as high. And of course, the expense is coming down to where your residents can have wearables and the system can detect the fall as it's taking place. So the system placed around the facility can learn the residents' movements and over time detect unusual activity and send alerts to caregivers in predicting high-level events. Now, I look at this, Jim, as two different ways. We have the resident. Now, the system is watching the resident as they do their daily routine. They go out, they do a walk, they're doing loops around the campus or the community, and there could be a spot or a time of the day where that resident is more prone to a fall. Conversely, there could be a step. Think of a sidewalk. If you got trees and you got a sidewalk, you can have roots go underneath, start to pop up one of the blocks in the sidewalk, and can cause a tripping hazard. And so where you have a sidewalk where you're having no slips, no falls, and all of a sudden there's one, then there's three, then there's seven, the alert on location, you can, from a geography standpoint, you can hone in on physical, environmental things that are causing slips and falls. So AI, responsible AI, can be used in a transparent way with the residents' data, so ensuring the system is regularly checked and updated for accuracy to avoid the false positives, the false alarms, or the missed events as well.
Yeah, I think that's a big deal, actually, the whole fall prevention for sure. So how does continuous learning and improvement apply in the AI and BI context?
Well, the model, that's continuously training. So training is an interesting thing. I shared our engineers are reading conversations, and we're doing this on almost a daily basis. So we're going through, we're making sure we have as many happy stories as possible. We're fixing the unhappy stories. And then we train the model, and training the model is actually a process. Think about it, kind of like if you had Scrabble letters in a bag. You laid out words, you reshuffle the bag, and then the words spell out better than they were before. It's kind of the training process. There's parameters, and the way NLU works is it's predictive parameters. And so we have lots of words. When you have a sentence, Jill is chasing what? Jill is chasing a dog, chasing Spot. And then you have context. Who is Jill? Where is Jill at? This is all part of the NLU process. So this is in the software. The software drives all of this. It's not something anybody has to write or learn today, but the system has to be trained on sequence. And so if you don't have the human interaction to look at what's taking place and then train the system in a more accurate way, then you're doing one of two things. You're just training the system to train the system in hopes that your residents are having better outcomes, better satisfactory conversations. Or, and this part is kind of cool too, or you could take the conversations in your NLU and pass them to another AI like OpenAI and ask OpenAI, is this a happy story or not a happy story? There are a few solutions out there. Auto GPT is one of them, where it simply brings in multiple bots. If we're talking about conversation, multiple chat bots, and they have the bots work together for a specific purpose. Another example, Jim, write some code, analyze the code, fix the code, rewrite the code again. And two bots, think of it like you have a software developer and you have a quality assurance engineer. You have two bots that just go back and forth building something together for as good as the instruction set was given to them. And so pretty awesome way on the continuous learning. There's three different ways that I see it. And it's the same thing with BI strategies. This is working with people. You create dashboards, put the dashboards out. And then are people using the dashboards? Are they getting the benefit of the dashboards? And you make adjustments to those as you go as well.
So what's the most important thing to remember about the synergy between AI and BI?
The most important thing to remember, I think it's at the end of the day, it's the human beings using the system, right? We have two different systems that are coming together, and they're coming together because there's a single data set. So again, ETL, got to be a part of this solution. The more you use a central database like Microsoft Dynamics, the more data inherently is sitting in one database ready for the organization to be able to analyze. Otherwise, ETL, bringing it into a data warehouse, best to have it in the cloud. And then AI and BI, the synergy truly is on the extracted, transformed, and then loaded data. Goal of all of this, better decision making, better outcomes, and better customer experiences. So successful implementation, it requires an integrated approach in the takeaway section right now. In-depth analysis and predictions, and then the visualization. I mean, the visualization these days is stunning. You know, part of AI we've talked about in other webinars, but we really haven't hit on too much today, is the visual AI piece, the ability to generate pictures off of data, not just graphs, but actual pictures of data, pictures of recipes that you might be dreaming about, the ability to take an idea or text and turn that into an actual picture. It's never been better than what it is today. But at the end of the day, Jim, you know what's most important? And it does kind of circle back to the ERP system, business performance. If there's not a return on all of this, it's not worth it. And even if it's implemented in a mediocre state, the returns are just phenomenal. They're off the rails.
So how does a customer-centric strategy fit into the AI and BI synergy?
Yeah, it's by focusing the two things together. I mean, that's at the end of the day, you got the business and you got your customers, right? The business will be successful if your customers are successful, if they're happier with what you have going on. And so the two of them work hand in hand in that exact standpoint. And then it's just continuous improvement. Conversations, meetings with residents, customers, executives, dining room managers, and seeing what they're getting out of the system. And almost just as important, more important, what do they want next out of the system? There's so many solutions that could be created or so many problems to be solved. I think it goes hand in hand like anything. It involves implementation, getting the feedback, and continuous improvement. So what's been in software for decades comes right into AI and BI in a fantastic way. So now we're going to enter into our third section of the webinar, and this has to do with governance. This is where all the boos come out. But we've heard, AI has been pretty wild. When first released, we had version 3.5 was released, I think it was third quarter of last year, but it was pretty quiet. really OpenAI hit the radar screen in January of this year, and then very shortly poured out 4.0. If last year in October you asked OpenAI to write you a malware program, it absolutely would. If you asked it how to kill your spouse, it would give recommendations. And what's the flip side to that experience? I think we've seen it in Google. Google has been incredibly hesitant to release Bard because of just safety. They just keep saying it over and over again. They didn't feel their own solution was safe enough to be released. Well, human beings, quite a few of us are devious, and quite a few of us are continue to test things. And so I don't see safety ever being perfect. It's not perfect. Things continuously adjust and adapt, like malware. The big risk today is on the hijacking of systems. I'm trying to think, there's actually a name for that, where they take over your system. Excuse me, they encrypt all of your data. Ransomware, that's the term I was trying to think of. Ransomware is a big deal today. And in the past, it was all about intrusion detection. But, what are they doing now? Today, the big scam is they send you a beautifully worded email that looks like it's from your bank. It looks like it's from your Microsoft Office. They're doing such a great job at the social engineering that they're able to send you an email that you think is completely legit. You click on the link and you introduce a virus right into your system that fast. So safeguards get better and better as the bad people get better and better. And this is just a continuous cycle. So in terms of governance, we're going to hone in on some very specific things here. And the definition is a good place to start. So it refers to the principles, the policies, and procedures that organizations adopt to manage all of this, the deployment and its use responsibly and ethically. Elements of. So what does transparency mean in the context of AI? Well, there's 4 basic components of this. So it's establishing the guidelines, the consideration. So it's your policies. So you got to get into what's fair, what's transparent, and what's privacy. It goes back to the dials. How do you want to start off with your dials and go into this knowing that, like safety, you're going to adjust your dials for your organization based on the way it rolls out and the things that you learn through the process. Oversight mechanisms, you got to have ways to do things like view conversation to trigger unhappy stories. And you have to be able to implement those systems so they monitor, adhere to established principles and whatever regulations that you put in place. And you have to have accountability. We have a team right now that's doing this on a daily basis. They know what their roles are. They know what they're accountable and responsible for. So it's the same thing inside your team, whether you're going to outsource this and oversee the accountability piece, or whether this is going to be people you hire. And on the inside, it's a combination of the developers and the users working together. And then transparency is just that. I love just starting off with telling everybody there is no privacy. That's a great way to be transparent. There is no privacy. If you ask the system what color shoes you should wear today, people are going to see that conversation. I think with humans, a lot of them aren't going to care because they're going to see the value in having somebody make a recommendation on things like what color shoes I should wear with this outfit. Jim, can you imagine tying in visual AI to that, where you take a picture of yourself and then ask AI what color shoes should I wear with this outfit? It's crazy. That's where we're headed right now. You could take a picture of an outfit and then go into your closet and take a picture of all your shoes and ask AI, which one should I wear? And it'll tell you which one and why it came up with those recommendations. Pretty awesome. But transparency wide open.
So I got a question for you. So what are some risk management strategies for AI?
No, that's a huge one. So the auditing of all of this, we've got a cadence in place where we're collecting how many happy stories, how many unhappy stories, percentages. It's for us, a 90% happy story success rate is what we go for. So when you start off brand new in the community, if you're 50, 60%, that's good. The goal is to get to 90% as fast as possible. And the way this works, it almost is exponential. You get to a point when you're about 95, 97% happy stories that your customers, your residents overall are really getting enjoyment out of the system. So part of it's just overseeing it. So monitoring the risks of this, deploying strategies, regular audits, risk assessments, all should be in place as you release your first MVP. Then you have compliance, right? I mean, Europe's really leapfrog us, and I'll say us, I'll say California, when it comes to privacy concerns. And so when you're in what I call intraland, when you're within the community, you're not serving the general public. There's still ramifications for that, but you want to make sure whatever your local, your state, your country, your province, whatever your laws are, making sure that you're staying within those and you're providing whatever's required from a legal standpoint, an industry specific standpoint, and then of course just common ethics. And finally, you got the strategies for this, managing the risks, the compliance. This is over the long term. How are you going to implement this thing over quarters, over years? How are you going to do staff training, bring staff in on this? And what's going to be the implementation piece of this when it comes to ethics, when it comes to government framework?
So I got another question for you. So how does the personalized care assistance example uphold data privacy standards?
Yeah, there's a senior living community in the implementation of this. It provided personalized care for the residents. And there's been a lot of stories about this. I think one of the more famous ones came out at the beginning of this year. It's somebody who took their dog to a vet, and the vet couldn't figure out what the problem was. The person came home, they put the symptoms in the chat GPT, provided a solution, took the solution back to the vet, and solved the problem, I should say, that the vet wasn't able to solve. That's when you talk about it at a personalized care standpoint, that's pretty amazing. Now, what's the balance of that, right? I just gave you a success story. The data that comes out of AI is not infallible. There's a thing called hallucinations. And I think hallucinations is going to disappear the scene just as fast as it came onto the scene, but it's AI making stuff up, which is just absolutely precious. And so with ChatGPT, it can consume a lot of information. 50,000 words can be dropped into the system like a book, where you analyze the book and then ask questions. Like, let's say you got a historical fiction novel of Europe, and you ask the question, where in the book was the country of England represented, and in what light was England represented? Well, if you upload the book, you'll get, here are 7 places where England is referenced, and here is the light, the way in which the country was represented. Well, if you, in a brand new chat, without giving the input of the book, just ask the question, hey, in this book, how was it represented? England. How was England represented? Well, it has to go back to its training data, and that was the end of 2021. I believe it was September 2021. And it'll go back, and odds are these training models are getting so large, they're consuming like almost all the information on the internet, all the legitimate information. And so there's a high chance that book's going to be there. It's going to be referenceable, but it's going to lack the context of me feeding it the data right now. And that's where hallucinations come in. So you may get 7 representations, you may, or 6 or 8, and you may find that some of them are completely invented, completely made up. That's a hallucination, and we're seeing that. So that's a consideration point in all of this. But otherwise, the purpose of the system is to learn the individual preferences and needs, to be able to use this data in order to predict information and get into scenarios where you're providing better customer service, but you're not doing so in such a way that you're risking privacy in the long term.
So we're going to go back to one of the questions that we had earlier, the example that you gave. How does that fall detection and prevention system ensure accuracy in its predictions?
It's over time, right? The more events that take place and the more the system learns, then the higher the accuracy rating goes. It's kind of like, as I shared a few minutes ago, but when you come in to a brand new implementation, if you're 50-60% success, that's a happy story, is a success, then you've met a goal. At least that's our internal goal. And there it begins to increase and go higher and higher. When you get into the 90s, it really flattens out, because it's not going to be possible to have 100% perfection with these types of systems. But when you get up to 90-97%, I think you'll find a really sweet spot. So the takeaways of governance, the things to consider, the importance of it, implementing a robust governance system is a big part of all of this. Managing risks, identifying risks, managing risks, ensuring whatever compliance that happens to be before you, and then trust. The more happy systems or happy stories that you have with the system, the more trust is going to be built up, both internal users and external users. You got effective risk management. That's going to continue to develop. And in fact, you remember Elon Musk and a few other people just a few weeks ago was saying all of this AI work needs to be postponed for 6 months, and it was able to maintain trust. I have a different motive for a lot of these people. If you think about it, internally, Tesla has a phenomenal AI system. It's what's being worked on and improved for one-day self-driving mode. But Tesla today does not have a solution like OpenAI. And if some of you know the story, he was one of the original co-founders. And according to Elon, the name OpenAI came from him. But there was a disagreement pretty early on. He left the organization. It went from a nonprofit. They go back and forth whether it's a for-profit now or it's a nonprofit acting like a for-profit. But in either case, they accepted a little over $10 billion in investment money from Microsoft. And there's a big synergy, a very close relationship. I was going to say incestuous, but it's not. A very close relationship between Microsoft and OpenAI today, which certainly brings it more towards a for-profit feel. But regardless, there's a big push for open source. There were some government, there were some Senate interviews that took place, some conferences this last week, and there'll be open source. Some of the best solutions available right now for having your own AI platform are open source. And so whatever you have, you need to build trust into the system, and with trust, of course, comes confidence. Then the risk management piece, effectively managing it, the compliance strategies. What do you need to be successful and have responsible use? And then just the use itself. Real world examples demonstrate that it's possible to leverage all these benefits and end up with a solution that's ethical, fair, and responsible.
I think that's all the questions that I have for you, Lance. And I definitely think this is something, this is our next big thing for those of us that's been around a while. There's been real critical moments in history. This is one of them, and we're living it now. We'd like to be on the front end, and hopefully we've helped you understand a little bit more about that. Lance, you have any parting shots for the guests?
Since we have struggled with First Vimeo, and now it looks like we had a good performance today with StreamYard. Typically, we have some folks that will chime in. And as we ripped through this pretty fast right here on the comment section, we've got a lot of people viewing this right now, but I'm not seeing, we didn't invite anybody in as far as commenting goes. So Arnell, do you happen to see anything on the comment section that I'm missing right now? Comments, Q&A. Not seeing anything at this point in time. So I think the next time we do this, and there's so much coming out, of course, there will be a next time we do this. We'll do a little better job as far as the engagement piece. Now that you and I have some confidence, we can actually do this, and it's live and it's working. And then we'll have more of an engagement piece with you all, because that's what we're looking for here. So if in the comments you type out any questions, you want to engage with us, actually, let me go ahead and hit the next slide here. So you can reach out to us through DM. Here's our sales and marketing email address. If you have any questions for Jim, if you have any questions for myself, if you want to know what solutions are available, if we can help you or serve you in this in any way, shape, or form, from advice solutions, please let us know. Our job is to help your entire organization, whether it's point of sale, it's CRM, it's ERP, it's the ETL, bringing the information together, whatever it is. Our team's goal is to serve you in making sure you're getting business intelligence and artificial intelligence in order to provide your customers better outcomes. So with that, we appreciate everybody, and we look forward to seeing y'all on the next interview. Thank you, Jim.
Yep. Have a great weekend, everybody. Great holiday weekend.
Memorial Day. Take care.
Memorial Day.